to leave about, I don't know, 1 inch to 2 inches. So I'm just going to put a really light line right here to remind me not to go beyond that spot. I want to give myself some space because I want to create a little bit of water here eventually, or the illusion or reflection, a place to do some reflection. So I'm going to move up and use this little space so that we can make sure that our banyan tree has a place to inhabit on the paper. Alright, so we're going to start by making 2 little lines that kind of arc out like that. Nothing real difficult. So go ahead and make your lines if you haven't done so already. Okay, we can even do, let's see, I'm going to do something like this too, because they do have all these openings in them. Alright, and we can add more later, but I'm just going to go ahead and put that one in right now so I don't forget. Now, we're going to branch this off, so we're creating the first branch, and I'm just going to make them kind of wavy. And then make this one kind of wavy. Alright, not sure what you think it looks like right now. It's still looking pretty abstract. Okay, then we can go through and start adding more lines. So maybe I want to turn this into a branch. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, but I'm going to get wider down here because right here I'm going to add this sort of V shape and let it branch out. Branch out. Alright, so the branch has branched out. We also have more space over here, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on this side, except I might go out this way and go a little crazy that direction. And then I'll just come down, and then when it looks like I could come in and create that little V or Y there, here, we'll create something like that. If you feel like your branches are too wide, add another V in here and branch it off again. Okay, don't worry if you get something that doesn't look quite right in here. We're going to paint over this in black later, so none of the pencil lines will be visible anyway. Okay, so we're doing that. Let's go ahead and I'm going to join up with this corner, and I'm going to make another one, and then I'm going to skip over a little bit. I'm kind of following that same pattern, except up here I'm going to get wide. Okay, and let me pull my paper down. There we go. And go here and here. And again, if you want to make this thinner, you can just remember you have to paint this later, and if it's too thin, it's going to be tricky. Alright, so just create the branches the way you see fit, but we're having a little bit of fun with it. Alright, maybe this one's going to be a wider section of the tree, so it's going to be more like this. Okay? Then you can add some other crazy branches off of that, and again, don't worry if they look like they're overlapping or anything, because it could be coming from behind, but like I said, we're painting over this later, so I'm just adding extra branches, so you can keep adding to yours. They don't need to look exactly like mine, so if you're stressing out, knock it off, because it doesn't matter. Everybody's tree should look different, and that's part of the fun of creating the banyan tree. So let me make another branch out here. I'm going to go out here like this. Don't get too many branches in there, because then you won't leave yourself any space to add color later. Because like I said, we are going to create the illusion of a colorful background and some reflection at the base of our page. Now, as I said, the banyan tree does some weird things, like it sends out shoots from the tree itself, so we're going to go ahead and do some of that, and my water's going to be down in here somewhere, so I'm just going to bring this down to that point and make sure that we can see it. Okay, and let's see, and then you might, and if this looks too thick, just erase it. That's why we're working in pencil. Okay, so you can thin that out, because remember these are shoots that will come down, but eventually they will get wider. And when we paint them, they'll get wider too. So you could do something like this, and you can shrink them out. Taper them off, that's the word I was looking for. Okay, maybe have another one over here. Something like that. And remember, it looks really tacky right now, but we're going to paint over it, it'll look fine. All these little imperfections will disappear. Alright, so I might add another one coming from here. And I'm going to go ahead and do it this way because sometimes I think this is easier. Then you can make it thicker or leave just the plain lines and worry about making it thicker when you actually paint it. Okay? Either way works. So we want some on this side, but we also want some on the other side of the tree. So I'm going to go ahead and put some here. And maybe one coming from here and another one from here. Maybe another one branching off from there. And again, you can thicken this up with your pencil or just worry about the thickness when you paint. So you don't have to do it now. Alright. And let's see, how many more do I want? Let's do another one from over here. This tree's got major growth. It's a healthy tree. Here. And then you might have one that's just beginning to come down. Hasn't made its way down to the ground yet. Alright, so we've got lots of branches here. Hopefully you're coming to a stopping point with your branches. If not, try to wrap that up. I'm just looking to see if there's any more I want to add. It's not a necessity because I've got lots of nice negative shapes through here that are kind of cool looking. So I think I'm going to stop there. I've got my trunk of the tree and I'm actually going to make it a little wider, I think, because I know when I paint I'm going to need that space. Alright, and I'm leaving this part open. And if you want another spot here where growth came down and then it creates another, that's fine. Okay. Alright, so the next step is to use our black Tempera paint. So, hopefully you have your materials ready for painting. Remember, I left my white space here. We'll get to that part later, but the next step is to paint in all of these branches. So I have a brush here handy. Let me rinse it out real quick and wipe it off. I don't want to water down my paint. I want my paint to stay as heavily, go on nice and thick. Alright, so whatever kind of paintbrush you come across, mine just happens to be, the first one I grabbed is a flat brush. Doesn't need to be a flat brush necessarily. So whatever brush you get a hold of, make sure that you don't overload it with paint because then it just drips all over. But I'm just filling in the trunk now with black paint. So it's more like a silhouette of the tree because of the light that will be shining from behind it. Okay, so you're going to be painting over every part of this trunk. Remember where your negative spaces are, those open spaces that are left from the tree, where the tree doesn't exist. Okay, those are negative spaces. Alright, so here I am going up through here. And like I said, those pencil lines are going to start disappearing. If your tree becomes a little wider, not a big deal. Okay, so here I am coming down with one of these growths. Okay. If your paint, if you don't have big globs of paint on here, you should do okay. If you're one of those people that sends your paintbrush in for a huge soaking, well, you're in for some troubles along the way because it'll drip around on you. It'll fill in spaces you don't want. I usually only try to get it on the tip of the brush. I know it's kind of hard to see on this one, but just a little on the tip, and if I need more, then I dip it back in again. It allows me to control my painting a little better than if I have big blobs. If I were doing a larger painting, maybe those blobs would be okay, but in this case, no. We're only working on about 9 by 12 paper. Alright, and hopefully your brush isn't too wide. If you're using a round-headed brush, this part will actually go better. This was just what was convenient. Because if you only touch with the tip of a round brush, you can get those fine lines. Okay? So here I am, keep painting away. So So this is your chance to paint. I'm trying to go quickly, but you don't want to go so fast that you make a mess. Okay. We're not worried about any other light sources or anything in this case, simply because the light, the way we're going to create it, is coming from the back. It's kind of a later time in the day, so it's actually going to, all you're going to get is that silhouette, where you don't really see the color of the tree, you see the color of the sky in the distance instead. So notice I'm not taking forever on every branch. But this also comes with practice, getting used to your brush and how the paint responds to your paper. Because it does take practice. Once you get used to it, you'll paint faster too. But you don't want to do it just for the sake of painting fast. Because haste, sometimes they say haste, meaning going too fast, makes waste. Because you're not getting 10 sheets of paper. You know how I don't believe in wasting our paper. If you can't figure out one thing to do with it, come up with another idea later. But don't throw it away. Alright. Go back over here. I feel like I'm getting somewhere. Won't be long. This is why, now that you're painting all of your branches, if you're one of those people who went crazy and painted or drew in tons and tons of branches, you're probably thinking, why did I do that? And now you know why I said, don't get carried away. Just get enough to give you some decent amounts of space. But every one of these branches has to be painted in. And you don't want to go too simple, because then it would be kind of boring. But if you go with too many, you're never going to get done in the time we have in class. Our goal is to have some success, not to be perfect our first time around. So don't worry about any perfection, because you're learning. Nice thing about using tempera paint is you don't have to worry about cleaning your brush out so regularly. If you've used acrylics, those can dry up your brush pretty quick. So you got to make sure anytime you're not using the brush with acrylic paint that you keep it cleaned out or keep it moist. Because you don't want to ruin your good brushes because you forgot that simple tip. But tempera paints are nice because if they dry on there, they'll clean up later. Alright, so far so good. Whoops, I just dropped my brush and made a mess on the corner of my paper. Alright, we'll figure out something. I'll pretend like I wanted it there, maybe. Because I'm not going to be able to clean that off my page. So let's see. When all else fails, put another branch coming down. There we go. Look at that tree. Grew another one. Problem solved. No big deal. Alright, so don't stress if you made a mess like I just did. It happens. But when you're all done, no one will ever know. It's your secret. I draw rough sketches of things all the time, and I have kids come to me and they're like, oh, do I have to do exactly how I planned it out? Absolutely not. I said, the rough sketch is just to get your ideas out and get you an idea of how you might start. But what's cool is you start working on it and you're like, ooh, I think I want to change something about this. And that's the fun of art. You can change it as you go, because your ideas will evolve. They will grow into something much more complex, and that's okay. Okay. Almost done painting mine. Hopefully you're getting pretty close to the end of your painting. If not, you can always pause the video for a little bit and catch up. Because the next step is just letting it dry, and nobody wants to sit and watch paint dry. It's not very exciting, but... Alright. So now, like I said, we have to let the paint dry. Your paint may be dry already. It just depends on how humid it is in the room and how much water you had in it. So we'll let that dry, and then we'll come back for the next step. Okay, so with the magic of TV in this case, we can move on. I've got another example that I had started earlier, and it's mostly dry. The next step involves using oil pastels. Now, whether or not you'll have time to do all that today is just depends on how well things set up and how long it took to get yourself ready. But we're going to color in each of these negative spaces, the white spaces, using oil pastel. Oil pastels come in different forms. Mine are round. The ones in the classroom sometimes are hexagonal shape. Okay, different brands. As long as they put out nice bright color and they're creamy and they work really well, that's all that matters. There are some out there I've had in the past that don't work well at all. You start to use them and you get hardly any color, and then it's a big disappointment. So, in these negative spaces, like I have some red right now, I'm going to put some nice oil pastel down in here. Okay, and again, it's important that your paint is dry. Mine's mostly dry. I'm trying to avoid getting my hands in it right now. Okay, so there's some red. Let's see, maybe I'll put a little bit of orange. I got some orange here. I'm going to go ahead and let that blend into that one. And as I overlap them, that's kind of cool because they will blend in a little bit as you color into the next. But every once in a while you might have to clean the oil pastel with some paper towel because the next person's not going to appreciate it if you left some color behind. Maybe I'll put some cool colors in with it. So maybe I'll put some, ooh, that's a dark blue. Let's see if I've got a lighter blue. I'm going to throw a little bit of blue in here. There's some lighter blue. I don't know. Whatever, just some colors, and notice as I pull into it, it does blend a little bit. You can use your fingers to blend, and if it's on here thick enough like mine is right now, holy moly, it's blending quite a bit. Okay? But you should have very, very strong colors right now. Now, obviously, certain colors, if you blend too much, you're going to get brown. Because remember, complementary colors mixed together, you get brown. So you can put colors in like that. If you wanted to do a little bit of green and yellow, see, I got some green. So maybe I'll put some green over here. It's just that bright, vibrant color. And practicing some blending. Okay, I got some nice yellow, so I'll put some yellow in here. And notice it is picking up some of the green. No big deal. Alright, maybe I'll put a little bit of that blue over here too. Because, yeah, blue and yellow make green, so if those blend, it's not going to hurt anything. And let's see. I wanted to play with a little bit of purple or violet. Just have some fun. And then you can blend that in and smooth it out a little bit with your fingers. Okay. Trying to hold this, and remember, that purple and yellow are complementary, so be careful, because you're going to get brown if you overblend. Alright, but as you can see, working that into those negative shapes, and you start getting this really cool looking, colorful kind of background. And I said you just keep going as you go. Keep going here, 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 here. All these little white spaces we talked about earlier, we're going to fill in with color. Alright, so continue on, choosing colors as you see fit. Remember, you can keep warm colors together, cool colors together, or like I did here, I just kind of played around a little bit and allowed some warm and cool colors next to each other. Just be careful not to mix them too much, otherwise you get brown, and that doesn't make for a very exciting sky. Okay, now we're only going to do that in these areas inside the branch. Once we get below the branches, we're going to stick with our orange, our red, orange, and yellow. And remember, we have our water line down below that we'll work on later. Okay? So, we'll go ahead and keep on working with your colors. Having fun while you're doing it, of course. Don't ever want to skip out on the fun part. Alright, so let me get me some blue and purple, and I'm going to keep working, and you keep adding your color. Don't forget that you might have to clean your fingers off every once in a while because they will get pretty oily as you go. And I had a paper towel, and apparently I set my box on top of it. That's where it's at. Okay, so keeping a paper towel nearby is always a good idea. Sometimes a moist paper towel and a dry paper towel is good to have. One to start the wiping off and the other one to take it. But oil pastels, usually dry is sufficient. Alright. We'll continue on with our color. Okay, so once you have the top portion of the tree colored in and blended with your colors, we're going to work from the very bottom part of the tree down. We're going to create the red to orange to yellow, and we're going to create, now this was my example before the example that I did, so I didn't leave as much space at the bottom, but remember we left some space to become our water in the other, and I can still do that on this one. So I'm just going to lightly pencil a line just to remind myself that's where my water is going to be. I can't do as much reflection there, but I think you get the idea of what we're doing and where it's going to go. So let's go ahead and do our red to orange to yellow, red to orange to yellow coming down. So let me see if I've got my red handy. Some of these are hard to tell, and the labels don't stay on for very long because oil pastels are oily and the labels like to pop off. Alright, so this is good enough for red. Okay, so I'm going to put in some red. And I'm just doing that all along this section. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of the tree. I'm not being real perfect with coloring it in, because remember we're blending. It all depends on how well your oil pastels blend. Some blend very, very easily, and some are a little more work. And you just have to learn to work with the type that you have, and you figure out how it behaves, the nature of the medium you're working in. Once you know that, then you can tackle it head on. Alright, so now I'm going to do some orange. And it doesn't matter if you have the exact same amount, and I noticed I had a little bit of imperfection in my orange where it picked up some other color. It's not the end of the world. It's okay. Alright, so I'm working that orange in here, just finishing up. Notice I'm going kind of quick, trying not to get on my black paint, but I'm not being very successful there. Alright, and then we'll put some yellow in down at the bottom. And you could do it up and down, I suppose. Actually, I kind of like that better, because then when it grabs into the orange, it pulls it down. Alright, so I'm going to put some yellow in here. If we have to go back and touch some areas up, that's not a problem. Okay. Because I might decide I want more color there. Alright, and I notice I'm trying to stop at that line that I made where there's going to be water in my pictures for some reflection. Alright, so let's do our blending. I think I'm going to blend it downward. We'll see, maybe back and up and down. That works pretty good. Make sure your fingers are clean. I keep forgetting to wipe my fingers off, and then I end up with purple and blue getting mixed in stuff here. So it's easy to do. I mean, if it happens, it happens. But it's better to try to keep it from happening. Alright, and I'm trying to hold my paper still so that I don't tear it or it doesn't go flying off the page. But notice how even though I left some white spaces before, that is now starting to fill in, and once I blend, it looks pretty good. Alright? It just, again, depends on the brand of oil pastel, how creamy they are. You know, if they blend real easy like frosting, or if they're going to give you a hard time like dried out frosting. Doesn't spread well. Okay. I noticed a couple spots where I forgot to put some color. I'll just put some in there, and of course I got some orange out of that because it was on my finger. Okay, and then we'll go over and do the other side. Notice the difference. Here is what we scribbled in, and here's how it looks when it's blended. Big difference. Really like that effect that oil pastels have. Okay, I'm shaking the camera here. Sorry. Alright, and it doesn't matter if you get some down into that area that we reserved for water. A little bit down there. It's going to reflect anyway. Okay, so I saved some area. You can see I pulled my sky down into the bottom. The tree is still popping out. You've got all that color going on. Alright, now as far as the water, we're going to use some purples and blues with just a little bit of pink. So see if you can find purple, blue, there's my light blue, purple, pink, any of those will work. Alright, I've got a couple. It just depends on what purples you have. I have a couple of them. Different types. So, whatever you have available. If you want some darker blue, that's fine, but I think I'm going to put a little bit of light blue in here, and I'm just kind of squiggling it through. I don't have a lot of room in this example. The other one I made more room, and I had you leave more room, so yours should work out a little better. You should have some more options. But I'm going to put some purple. Now that purple's too dark, so I'm not going to use very much of that. I don't like it. So I'm tossing that one to the side. I have one that's a little bit lighter. I'll put that one in. And then I'm going to use some more pink. Notice I'm just being real loose with the movements here, not being perfect in the lines, that kind of thing. There are times for that, and this is not one of them, so don't worry about it. Alright, so here I am, adding in my color. Nice pink color to lighten that up. Okay, now, you might even go back and hit it with some green here and there, but let's just see what this does. I'm going to go back and forth this direction, at least try to. Okay, because I'm trying to create that difference between sky and water. And it looks like I may need to go back in and add some more color over the top of what I've already done, and that's okay. Okay, if we need more blue to add in, we can add more blue. I got carried away with the bright colors. We'll see. Okay. Alright, so I've blended that in, and sometimes you can get that extra that might go on the black paint. Sometimes you can wipe that off. If not, well, it is what it is. We'll live with that. Most people will never notice. We're the artists, we notice those little things, but other people look at it and say, wow, how'd you do that? Okay, so don't get too critical of yourself. Alright, so you might go back in and just work through some, do a little bit of waviness in here. I'm going to put some blue just to give it that idea that there's some rippling water going on in here, because you want it to look watery, but don't put too many, because it'll get, it just doesn't look good that way. Alright? And if you feel like those lines are a little too strong, you can blur them out. And then if you feel that you blurred them out too much, you can pull them back. It's all about figuring out what looks best to you. Okay, so I blurred those out a little bit. If you're lucky enough to have a black oil pastel left in your kit, so they usually end up being very small because we use this color for a lot of things, then we can do that. What I'm doing is I'm putting some little wiggly lines, and if you have more space, this is going to look better than mine because I'm a little crowded. But I'm just putting those in there. It's sort of like the shadows of the roots from the tree rippling in the water. Okay, and if there were paper here, I would have put some out here. Because remember my other example, right here, I made the opening in the tree. Okay, but either way, it works. So just make your, and if it gets too bold for you, go ahead and lighten it up. Okay. So thicker to thinner, that sort of thing. And to me, that looks a little too, I'm going to see if I can smudge it a little. I might mess it up. It just seems like it's too dark compared to the other, but it also looks like if I smudge it, I don't know, kind of like it. So I'm smudging it out, but notice I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it. I'm just just enough to get it to smudge, and so I'm lightly, and I just adjust the pressure as I go. And if I find that it blended out too much and the water looks too murky, too dark and stuff, go back and add a little more blue. And your other colors, no big deal. I mean, it's just play around with it a little bit, touch it up. Have fun while you do it. That's the important part. Okay. And if you want to put a little bit of green in here, every so often, we can sneak a little green in. Just to give it that watery look, because water is going to reflect lots of different colors. Alright, so there we have it. Our flaming banyan tree. Don't forget to sign your name somewhere in here. Make sure, in our case, we want it on the back. I like to put my initials on my work somewhere in the front, but alright, so flip it over, put your name and class period on there so that I know which one it belongs to when it's time to hand them back. Alright, hopefully you enjoyed yourself and you've got an awesome looking banyan tree.